So this is a Zen story, and it's about the young novice monk or nun, interested in enlightenment, interested in the Buddha, interested in being free from suffering. And so, where do you go? Where do you go to find that? That is a good question for us in this modern culture. Where do you go to even touch something deeper than yourself, something more profound than what is being advertised on the TV? I don't really know. For me, I had to leave the Isle of Man and Western culture, and I had to go to India to find that and to touch it. But it's here too. I just didn't know it was here too. So this young man or woman wants to touch truth, wants to understand, what am I? What's the meaning of life? All these profound questions that we have. And so he goes to the monastery and he becomes a monk, and he's given a job. So rather than being invited in to meditate, every day, which sounds like that would be the way to experience truth, and it is. But instead of giving him a meditation practice, first of all, they give him some tasks. They give him some fairly mundane jobs because a monastery doesn't run itself. You need to peel potatoes and cut carrots and clean out the toilets and blah blah blah. And that's interesting because that's all the stuff we kind of want to get. We want to get away from that because we often think that's in the way of my liberation, isn't it? My 9 to 5 job, me having to weed the garden or unblock the toilet or clean the bath or what is it that take the bin out? If I didn't have to do all that stuff, then I would get enlightened because I think that's a fairly romantic way of viewing it. And of course, you can find enlightenment emptying a bin as much as meditating on a mountaintop. So rather than go and meditate, he's told you need to do some tasks around this monastery so that it keeps running. And one thing that needs to happen is the leaves in the courtyard need sweeping up because it's autumn. There's a big old tree in the middle of the courtyard, and the leaves are everywhere. And it's maybe like a Zen garden. So you've seen Zen gardens where they rake the gravel, and it's very precise. The garden is a sort of an expression of the state of mind that creates that garden. It reflects that inner state of stillness and harmony. Well, it's covered in leaves. And so the master of the monastery says, he's a rake. And what I need you to do is to rake up all the leaves and do a really good job. And so the novice takes this task seriously because he wants to impress. And so he spends the whole morning, hours, meticulously raking up all of the leaves, every single leaf he can find. He makes sure he gets it, he rakes it up, he puts it in the wheelbarrow. And then not just the leaves, but any other little bits of tree bark or insects or petal, anything that's drifted into the garden, he takes it away. So he makes sure the garden is just this pristine space now. It looks incredible. You would never have thought that it was covered in leaves just a few hours ago. And he's very proud. He's not just done the task, he is very proud of the task. He's done a really good job by anyone's standard. He's done a great job. And he wants to prove himself. When you're young, you want to prove yourself. Look what I've done. And so the master comes back to check. And the young monk, is very much, look what I've done, master. I've managed to get all the leaves away. You won't even find a single leaf anywhere in this garden. It's taken me hours. And he's kind of expecting a pat on the back, or maybe the master says, well, actually, I can see that you're of a different class of person. You need to come and do this special meditation now because you've shown me that you're worthy. Ego, basically, which we all have. Look what I've done. One of the things I've noticed is that if you're with a genuine spiritual teacher, they'll be friendly, but they're not there to give you a pat on the back. They're not there to say, yes, actually, you are special. And so the master sees this. The garden is completely spotless. And the novice says, this garden is perfect. And so on hearing that, the master then walks to the tree in the middle of the courtyard, and he grabs it by the trunk and he gives it an almighty shake. as hard as he can. And of course, as he shakes it, all these new leaves fall from above, scattering all over the garden. And the garden is instantly returned to the state it was in just hours earlier. It's covered in leaves again. And then the master turns to the confused novice and says, now it's perfect. It's a great story. It's like all these Zen parables because you think, well, what the hell does that mean? I like that story because what it does, for one thing, is it challenges our idea of perfection. What is perfection? What is it when something is perfect? Even the word really is a stumbling block because we all have our own personal, conditioned view of what perfection is in any scenario. How many times in your life have you uttered aloud, this is perfect? You probably have said it. And there would be a certain constellation of events that have come together for you to say, do you know what? This moment is perfect. If only it could stay like this. If only I could stay like this, if you could stay like this, if this situation could stay like this, it's perfect. But of course, it doesn't stay like that. As soon as we've said this is perfect, it changes because that's what's happening all the time anyway. Things are constantly changing. You're changing, he's changing, she's changing, the weather's changing, the circumstances are changing right now. So whatever perfection we settle on, it's not going to stay like that. As soon as you get something just right, it will then change. The butterfly flaps its wings in Australia and your perfect moment suddenly changes. Interconnectivity. We'd like it to stay like this forever, but it's not in the nature of things to do that. And we're not God, so we can't make it stay like that. So he clears the courtyard. He thinks, this is perfect. I've done really well. But the master shows him, do you know what? Your idea of perfection here is actually quite limited. It's quite a small view of perfection. Because if I shake this tree, and actually I don't even need to shake it really, because it's the nature of the leaves to drop from the tree anyway. I'm just showing you what's going to happen anyway. Whatever you get clean and clear will be spoilt. It will be interrupted. This week, when I've been meditating at home, over the road, they've been digging up their garden with industrial equipment and, jackhammers. And now all of that is fine, actually, but it's certainly not what we would call perfect. You might think, there's no way I can meditate for half an hour with a jackhammer happening outside my window, or with the kids, or I've got a sore knee today, or I'm tired today. I don't feel like it today. My concentration isn't great today. So it's not perfect. But the point is the universe, as we understand it, and I don't think we will ever truly understand it, because just in the same way, the novice has his little idea of perfection. Perfection is a clear garden, no leaves. But nature has a different idea of perfection. Again, in Zen, they have a saying, no leaf falls in the wrong place. So there's a bigger thing happening other than our ideas. This universe, as we understand it, is almost 14 billion years old. It's been doing what it's been doing for a hell of a long time before you popped up with your ideas and my ideas, which are, fairly small compared to that cosmic movement which we were born from. So rather than trying to enforce our ideas of what should happen, what shouldn't happen, what's perfect, what's a problem, maybe we can learn to step back and be with the moment that does happen. And what we might begin to see then is that actually every single moment without exception, is perfect. Now, of course, I'm not talking from a personal point of view. I'm not saying that you have to like every moment because life is tough. But every moment is perfect because it's a unique, mysterious moment that's arisen that lasts that long and then disappears again, followed by the next completely brand new moment, which pops up to say hello and then vanishes again. It's perfect simply because it is. It's an expression of the entire universe. Of course, it's perfect. It's an expression of sheer creativity. And in that sense, anything it does is perfect. It's unmatched, it's mind blowing, it's mysterious. Our problem is, or one of our problems, is that we think we know what this moment is and who I am and who you are. And we live in this sort of small framework. We think we know what perfection is. And so we get upset when things don't match our limited version. But how would it be to understand that we don't know anything and that all of our ideas about life are simply ideas about life, most, if not all of which, we haven't even come up with ourselves? We have, through education, downloaded thousands of years of human knowledge and culture. It's just downloaded. And then we say, well, that's true. If you were born 500 years ago, you would say, well, no, the Earth is the center of the universe. That's true. Because that would be the culture that you download. So they're handy, they're useful, but they're just ideas. But we forget their ideas and we hold on to them as true. That's not perfection. Perfection is this. But this means that we'll always be upset when something isn't perfect because we haven't understood that in a very profound sense, every moment that arises, every sound, every sight, every sensation in your body is perfect. It's an expression of perfection. When people have profound shifts, awakenings, enlightenment experiences, what they realize, part of that awakening, is that every moment is miraculous. Every moment is mysterious. We don't know what this is. You'll never know. And what we tend to do is just bombard it with names and labels, and we think, oh, that's what it is. The practice of meditation is to peel back those names and labels so you're just left with the raw, naked reality. And you're with it. And the more you sit with it, the more you realize I'm not just with it, I am it. Because it's non dual. There just is it. And you're in it and you are it. Right? That's the experience of the mystic. That's the experience of someone who has awakened. So if you're lucky enough to have that awakening, now not everyone has it. Not everybody has that moment. In fact, for me, I chased that moment for so long and I was so certain about it that it got to the point where I realized I was so fixated on it that I realized it probably wouldn't happen. Because what are the chances of someone who is obsessed, fixated on enlightenment completely and it actually happening? At some point, I realized that because I was so fixated on this goal, that almost precluded it happening. That's like someone wanting to win the lottery, and it's all they think about and it's all they talk about, and they win. You think, what are the chances of that? So people that have awakened, they have this experience. There is no ordinary moment. Every moment is perfection. Even the moments that hurt or pain. Again, it's not that they're good inherently or that it's beautiful inherently. No, there's war and there's ugliness and there's suffering and there's injustice and there's terror and there's horror. Yeah, there's all that. There's all that. But it's an equal expression of what the universe can do. And in that sense, it has a perfection about it. You can still change it. You can act on it. You can protest. You can step up. You can still do all of that, of course. But it just means that everything is re enchanted. And the problem with us is that by labeling everything, naming everything, thinking that you know what things are, we become disenchanted because there's no enchantment. It's boring now. You've read the textbook. We were taught what this is. So we become disenchanted. And one of the things we become disenchanted from is, well, ourselves. No one's pointing out that you are not what you think and that you are your own source of happiness, joy, liberation. It's you. It was never anything else and it was never anyone else. It's always you because you're an expression of this mystery. Last week, someone was using the expression pure awareness, God, Shiva, Brahman. They're all names. They're still names. We're still using labels here. But that's what you are. So you were never really disconnected from it because you are it. But until you understand that you are it, we feel like we're just lost in this world looking for something with meaning. We forget that we are profound meaning. Your own life is profound meaning. And it's completely sidelined. You could become a billionaire. And if that happens, let me know. But you could be potentially, you could become a billionaire. Essentially, you could buy whatever you want. And what you can't buy is being. Your own beingness cannot be bought, can't sell it. It is beyond price. And our culture teaches us to absolutely ignore it. And in a way, becoming a billionaire is the booby prize. Because it's just money. I mean, it's just money. Discovering your own being, I mean, that is the treasure house. That's why I called my book The Treasure House. It's you. You are the treasure house. Start exploring it. So this is what the mystics realize, the enlightened ones realize. Ah, okay, I am it. All there is the mystery. But you might not have that experience. Not everybody has it. But the good news is that you can act, pretend, believe. You can live as though every moment is a miracle. And if you do that often enough, guess what? You realize that it actually is. So you arrive at the same place. It's just that you didn't have a flashy experience, but you arrive with the same understanding. Now that's perfectly doable. That's maybe more steady. That's the steady path. Don't look for the big bang. Just understand. And the understanding will affect your life in ways that you literally cannot imagine. So that's the understanding. Live as though every single moment that pops up is this act of sheer perfection. Then you're not waiting for something to happen. You're realizing that walking to work in the sleet and the snow, it's just, what is this? As you might know, in a lot of Zen schools, they use nonsensical questions and riddles to cultivate this sense of deep, profound unknowing and mystery. And they're known as koans, Koans. And there's lots of famous ones. There's a whole book on koans and their answers. So you can sort of buy the book and kind of get the answer. But the point is, there isn't an answer. Your rational mind cannot answer the question. And if you went to the master and answered the koan, Basically, any answer would earn you a slap or a whack from the stick because it's not about your mind coming up with the answer. The purpose of the koan is to break your mind. It's just to short circuit thinking, concepts, names, and labels. And in that short circuiting, there can be a sudden openness in which you don't know who's looking out of your own eyes and you don't know what you're looking at, but it's wondrous and it's obvious. You spent your whole life looking for it, and yet it's what you are. There's lots of different ones, but there's one I've been using this week, which is really useful. And it's the question, what is this? What is this? Or if you wanted to put it into a sentence, I don't know what this is. You can ask that question or assert that you don't know what this is anytime, anywhere, any place. You do not have to be sat on a meditation cushion. You can be washing the dishes and remind yourself, I do not know what this is. Doesn't mean you stop washing the dishes, but what it means is that very affirmation or the question, what is this, has an effect. It acts as a way to kind of sweep away all of your conceptual thinking. It's the opposite of pretending that we know what everything is. This is the power of a good question. So when we think we know what everything is, you're just sort of cruising in a daydream. And the best that can happen then is that, as we're lying on our deathbeds and everything falls apart and consciousness is deconstructing and your ego self is just dissolving back into primordial awareness, that's when you might realize, I never knew what the hell this was anyway. But before you get to that, you can remind yourself that I don't know what this is. And that allows you to enter this profound moment of openness, not knowing, unknowing. It's the childlike state. It's the state that enlightened people live in. So you can either say, what is this, as a question? And that kind of prompts a very acute awareness. You're observing, what is this? And it's like you're looking as though for the first time. Or you could affirm, I don't know what this is. And that also produces this acute awareness that you don't know what this is. There's a body sitting on a cushion. There's an experience, there's sounds, there's sight, but I don't know what this is. Two ways of entering this unknowing state that can help re-enchant us once more. And that's the whole point, is to become disillusioned and re-enchanted. And one way to access that is to ask, as a practice, what is this?